companies or academia, but you can see here how money can influence the decision making when it comes to regulating what drugs, the recommendations, the dosing schedule, and all these sort of things for prescription compounds. And this is what this article is talking about, because there's this illusion that the RCT, the randomized clinical trial, showed that drug A is much better than placebo, and so therefore, when we prescribe that, we're following evidence-based medicine. Randy was a physician. But as this article talks about, oftentimes it is the pharmaceutical companies that are conducting the trials, and they don't reveal the raw data to the public, to academia, or oftentimes to the regulatory bodies. So you can see how there could be a conflict of interest, because ultimately the drug companies like Apple, like Amazon, like any other major company, they are a for-profit business, okay? So they're in the best interest of the regulatory bodies approving the drug. Therefore, they get sales. That increases their bottom line, because it takes a lot of investment in R&D and phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. They're very financially intensive. So you can see how there could be conflicts of interest. So what does this mean? This means that we need to continue to have these open conversations and dialogues and be wary of conflicts of interest. Oftentimes what you'll see in papers and opinion pieces is now, thankfully, various journals, Lancet.
Sensation. I watch his videos myself. I know loads of you do. Let me know in the comments below if you do watch Dr. John's channel. He's a fantastic guy, a brilliant communicator, trustworthy, and in my opinion stays super objective. On the full Luminary podcast, Under the Skin, which is on Luminary, where I do my podcast, we talk in depth about what's been going on in the last couple of years. In the part of the conversation I'm willing to put on YouTube, we talk about double-blind science tests. Do you even know what that means, a double-blind science test? I bet you don't, do you? I bet you've been pretending to know. I bet you've been using that phrase. What is a double-blind science test? He talks about how things are clinically trialed. He talks about the power of placebos. It's a fantastic conversation. You're going to love it. Stay to the end and hit me up in the comments about what you think of this chat.
Objectivity is really quite difficult intrinsically in pharmacology, because whenever you put forward an idea in pharmacology, you'll always get someone who says, well, where are the randomized double-blind controlled trials on this? So if you're talking about hydroxychloroquine, or you're talking about ivermectin, for example, as an early treatment, people will say, well, where's the large-scale randomized double-blind controlled trials on this? Well, there isn't any.
Can you just tell me what a randomised double-blind trial is?
Sure. So if you want to know if a new drug works, you have to have a clinical trial to see if it works. This is the experiment to see if it works. So you want a few thousand people who are actually getting a new drug, and a few thousand people who are not getting the new drug. But the point is, if you've got a few thousand people and you say to them, well, I'm giving you this new sophisticated drug, and we think it's probably going to make you better, they'll think, oh, I'm getting a new sophisticated drug, it's probably going to make me better. And the fact that they think that it's going to make them better is likely to make them better in itself, that belief. And that's well recognised, that's called the placebo effect. But then if you say to another group of people, well, we're doing this clinical trial, and those group of people over there, they're getting some nice sophisticated new treatment, whereas you're just getting a sugar pill, you're just getting a placebo, you're just a control, you're not as important. Now, not only will those people not have the placebo effect, they could actually believe that's making them worse and have what's called a nocebo effect. So we have to have two groups, and it's absolutely vital that who goes into those groups is randomised. So if you imagine, could you have all men in one group and all women in another group? Well, obviously not. Could you have young people in one group and older people in another group? Well, obviously not. Could you have people with heart disease and smokers in one group and non-heart disease and non-smokers in the other group? Again, you would be comparing apples and oranges. You have to compare like with like. So you can think about things like male, female, age, body mass index, smoking status, heart disease. And you could allocate people to one group or other, the experimental group getting the drug or the placebo group, based on that. But of course, then there's thousands of things that you don't know about. So the only way to compare like with like...
Whose interests do you think are ultimately served by American foreign policy? What do you think dictates these outcomes?
There's no even asking that question, because it's a great question. It's that's I think what you have to ask. So the American foreign policy, a lot of, if you look at there's groups that disproportionately benefit from the ideas behind American foreign policy. It's not like the military complex comes along and says, give us all your money because we like money and we want to be that's what happens. The bureaucracies themselves become advantaged by certain policy. NATO is itself sort of a lobbying arm. If you look at the top general of NATO, he's always sort of more hawkish than where the American administration is, and so they have a mission that they believe in and that benefits us.
You heard it from my finger?
Genuine what they believe in, but this is another influence on our politics. So yes, generals and smokers, manufacturers, there's influence of foreign governments. These concentrated interests have an outsized role to play in American foreign policy.
This comes from Jericho in Sherbrooke, Quebec. At the start of the pandemic,
Anyone who remember from the Bush administration or the Obama administration, not as much of the Obama administration, definitely the Bush administration to a lesser extent the Trump administration, just look up what they're doing now, and you'll often find that they're they're on the board of Boeing, or they're working for Lockheed or something like that, or Zoom actually. HR masters on Zoom. So this is
we're not gonna know for like 20 weeks.
Related, but there's there's a payoff. Sort of these people, end of these people's careers, and it's not very
So in case you can't tell early at all, you had to wait till they're full grown. You know that. You never not, Mimi.
More holistic perspective
Yeah, I know
on
what
reality, rather than one that was so
Maybe you
entrenched
knew
and
it.
temporal. You would look at a member of the government while they are in administration and just say, wow, I'm just
You're silly. Yes, you're silly. Yes. Get a drink. I don't want to be in a cage.
So that's section 2, part B. Because they're doctors, they haven't had the freedom of thought. They haven't had the freedom of opinion because they're getting censored and blackballed when they try to, suggest that another
Saudi government office. And so Signal doesn't help you with that. I do think, however, by the way, Signal is a foundation. It's not a for-profit company, so I'm glad to promote it. I do think they have something very valuable on Signal, and that is disappearing messages, which is you can set, if you and I were exchanging Signal communications, we could set in 1 week, make all this disappear. In 1 hour, make all this disappear. Up to 4 weeks. That's very valuable, because otherwise our text messages, look, I was tasked to do this for myself when the Saudi thing started, which is I had to think about everything that's on my phone. Holy shit. Every communication I had, for years, every text I sent, every photo, every argument, every joke that would be taken out of context, it's a very hard thing to do because we're like a mind. We're collecting all of this data in the phone. And so Signal is valuable. I think Signal's a good service, and but it doesn't solve the problem if a government wants you. If a government wants information, they can get it through programs like Pegasus 2.
Right. Well, how does Pegasus 2 get on your phone?
Well, different ways. It is a no-click incursion, meaning you don't have to click on anything. You might, typically you would get a text, and you would open that text, and that would download the little executable file, or you would watch a video, and it would be in the video. But now the newest Pegasus systems, they don't even need you to do anything. They can send you a message on WhatsApp, and even if you delete it, even if you never open it, they can get in your phone.
But what if you don't use WhatsApp?
It's a help, by the way. I don't recommend WhatsApp.
Why is that?
Because WhatsApp has had for some reasons that I don't want to share, and for some reasons that I do want to share, WhatsApp has had a particularly vulnerable circumstance with regard to people getting in other people's phones. Now, having said that, there are thousands of people right now all over the world working on nothing but getting into the new iPhone operating system. And then there's thousands of people at Apple working on nothing but being sure that the new operating system is impenetrable. And this just is an arms race that's going to go on. It's going to go on forever.
So you were saying that if you get a message through WhatsApp, but what if you don't get a message through WhatsApp? Is that executable if just a blank text message comes your way and you don't open it?
Less than that, unfortunately. You can get nothing at all with Pegasus 2. You can get nothing at all. They can enter a telephone number and they can get into your phone.
Nothing at all. No text
No,
messages.
you don't
So
get
you have
anything.
no idea whatsoever.
That's correct. And that's a problem with, zero-day exploits, which is you don't know it happened. And you go on for months and months and months not knowing that somebody's in your phone is a problem.
And how do you find out if someone's in your phone?
Well, it depends on the circumstance. In the case you described, I was notified originally by somebody at CIA, then notified 8 times